1, 2. 1, check. 1, 2. Hi, everybody. How are we doing? Oh, just dropping stuff. Right. Fresh plectrum for today, I think. Right, yes. Okay. And I've got the heater on in the background because it's absolutely freezing. But I'll have to switch it off. Right, yes, cold as always. In true to tradition to the live stream, I've got to complain about how cold this room is. And it's cold. What can I say? But great to have you all on here. Hi Jean, how you doing? Gorgeous guitar, if only it was 6 string. First the like, great Kevin. Which guitar should I grab? Which just one with 6 strings. Any one. Get your Kiesel, and then it's all matching, isn't it? Kiesel all the way, I think. All right, good to have you on here, Jean. And anybody else, do say hello. So today is got the Kiesel in hand, brilliant. So today is an interesting day, isn't it? Because the title of this was Chromatic Enclosures. So I'm a little bit of I've become a little bit of a trained spotter when it comes to chromatic enclosures. And basically, I thought I would go through the ones I sort of do know and use. And perhaps we could kind of work with that. It's really interesting, chromatic enclosures, because they can be very tricky to put into your playing. But I'm going to take you through like a process I have of doing this, and I'll just share what I've learned. But the interesting thing about learning and teaching is that if you want to reinforce your learning, which is part of the reason I want to do this for myself, is it helps you learn, doesn't it? So teaching somebody helps your learning, helps you clarify the process in which you've been through. So I think this is a good one for me, just as much as it is for everybody else, really. But that's what we're doing, chromatic enclosures, and I'll go through it. I've probably touched on it a little bit in previous sessions, because I always kind of get around to the chromatic bit at the end of whatever I'm teaching. That's how it feels, and then I don't have enough time to actually spend on the chromatic bit, and I think, I wish this was like a whole live stream in itself. Well, now it is. So we can have an in-depth look at it. So I think it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's the first thing. Second thing is there's a new coaching group starting in February. So if anybody's interested, in fact, there's several coaching groups. If anybody's interested in joining one of the groups, do give me a shout. The music coaching group is all about you making your own music, and it doesn't matter what level you're on. I'll be taking you through the entire process from beginning to end, and you will become prolific writers. So I have a whole process for this. So if anybody's interested, I'm being very brief about the coaching. Anybody interested, do drop me an email, and we can have a quick one-to-one, and I can tell you more about the coaching and see if it's a good fit for you. But basically, if you find it difficult to start, or you're good at starting and you can't finish anything, then this is the thing for you to do. Is the coaching would be a brilliant fit. And then anybody who's interested in guitar lessons, there's a little bit of capacity for that. And that's it, I think, for that. Oh, good. Kevin's excited. Excellent. With Kiesel in hand. So, before I start, I'm gonna have a bit more of my coffee. Well, I hope everybody's had a good weekend and they're prepared for their week. I mean, what a great way to start a day with some chromaticism. So I think like one of the things is like, why do it? Why bother sticking chromatic notes in your playing, sticking a load of notes that are out of tune, in your lovely solos? Well, for me, hold on, I'll just tune this. Oh, heavy. Okay. So why bother with chromaticism and enclosures and things like that? Well, the reason I actually did it was I've got back into guitar sort of gradually over the last couple of years, and like now it's like really grabbed a hold of me, and I play tons, right? And one problem when you're playing like a lot, and I mean I'm playing a lot because it's part of my job as well, right? So I've got a guitar, and luckily in my job as well as this, I get to play and improvise loads, right? And the problem with that is, although it's great for learning fast, it can become like you're a bit of a machine operator, all right? And then what happens is you get bored, so you have to look for new things to do. And with that, you have to start getting a little bit sort of experimental. So, there I was playing different notes, the odd new lick, playing what you know. And then you just realize like things are starting to really sound the same. Now, one thing about that interest, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this, when you're playing and you feel like I'm just playing the same thing all the time, it sounds the same. I mean, part of that is to do with that it's like your style developing, okay? And obviously you get bored of yourself because you're playing that style. But and usually that happens to be a feeling. Now, this is what I have found, right? So of when I've recorded myself and I felt that I'm playing the same thing, right, that it actually hasn't been the case. It's just more of a style thing. But still, that feeling does come from somewhere, and it does have some value. So we can have a look at trying to make you like playing different. So I've been through lots of different phases of trying to do that. The first thing I would say that's an easy fix for when you're getting really bored and playing the same things, right? So the thing about playing the same things is you're playing them because they work, right? So actually we can take that as a basis. You can take that basis of playing the same thing. And then what you can do is you can start modifying those ideas and making them new. So in other words, having a bit of a guitar music brainstorm and just trying to figure out different combinations, different sequences that you can change those particular repetitive things that you're playing and to make them into something new. In other words, recycle them. So I do a lot of that. So that's like the first thing. But the second thing for me was, right, I just want the whole sound to change a bit here. And one way to do that was simply just to start adding chromatic notes, adding some sort of colour in there. And it's been a sound that I've been interested in. So I just decided to kind of have a look at it. And of course, I'll play a little bit, right? Right, what we got? What's this? Okay, getting warmed up here. All right, okay. So, got a question. How are you? Hope you're well. I'm great. Say you're playing over a backing track random and you find yourself playing in what you know, saying pentatonic. How would you break free from that sound? That's what we're going to do today. So, hi everybody. Hi Brian. Yeah, we're doing chromatic today. That's what we're going to do. So we are doing chromatic stuff. Okay. So, chromatic things. Let's start. Hands are very cold today. So I'll use this rock track, which we're in sort of D. We're in D Dorian, believe it or not, of all things. So we'll do a bit in there and might move to E. Okay. Right. How do I know I should explore more with my sound? How do you know? Because you're getting bored of it and you think like, oh, I need to expand things. I need to harmonically expand. Okay. But I'm going to get into it. So the first thing we need to know is just understand a little bit about intervals. Okay. So I'll quickly go through the thinking behind how I think about improvising. So obviously you have modes, which is sort of the overview and bass. So for this track, I mentioned Dorian. Okay. Now, simply when I think of Dorian, it's a bit like looking at a map from a distance, right? I just think, well, it's a minor scale with a major 6. That's the only difference. Okay, it's like one note difference from the natural minor. That's the first thing. But superimposed over that, I have the pentatonic scale, right? And then if we work with the pentatonic scale intervals, the minor pentatonic, what we have is we have root, in our case, D. So we've got the root, we've got the third, we've got a fourth, we've got a fifth, we've got a seventh, and we've got the root, and then that just repeats, yeah? So root, minor third, fourth, fifth, seventh. And actually, the different notes, depending on how you use them, have different tensions when you're sort of playing. So what I'll find is like the fourth has like the most tension. In other words, it feels that it has to have something else to resolve it. So it has to be, you know, it's the one that really feels it has to be resolved. And some of them have less tension, like a fifth. You know, you can hang on that and it's not too bad. But you hear there that fourth's more nagging, isn't it? It's like, ugh. But then when I'm, you know, resolving to that D, the root note, we feel complete. We're back home. So that's what the tension is. So we're aware of these intervals and what they're doing. So that's the first layer, okay? And the pentatonic's a great place to start because all the notes are going to work, okay? It's just a law of nature. That's the first thing. But then, like, the next thing to this, which I always talk about, is that there's certain notes that I add to it. So remember, we have 7 notes in our regular, you know, modal scales. So in other words, Dorian has 7 scales. The minor scale has 5. If we add one more note, we get the 9th, which I love. Okay, now the 9th. It's like Joe Bonamassa kind of likes, isn't he? And Eric Johnson. But it's a really nice sort of sweet sound we've got there. But the good news about it is that we've now got 6 notes, so we're only missing 1 note, okay? And the last note is the major 6. And there it is, gives you a B.B. King sound, doesn't it? So that's kind of what we get when we start adding the major 6 in, or the one note that makes that minor scale sound like the Dorian, okay? So the Joe Bonamassa thing, we've got a request for that. So basically all it is, all I'm doing is, if you think of the pentatonic scale, I'm just adding in the 9th. So it's a little run, and we go. And the way I'm economy picking it, so I'm going up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up. Syncing up there. So that's the way I do it, because, like, what happens... Like here is I do, like, the descending groups of fives, the cascade. Oops. In, like, 3 notes per string. Well, I do if you're economy picking it. If you're doing alternate, you can do whatever you want. So anyway, that gives us the 9th anyway. So we've got 6 notes. We add the 6th in. We've got all of our notes, and then because we're doing chromatic notes, right? We've got the flat 5. So in other words, we've got the blues scale. Which I never considered to be like the flat 5, like a note that's out of tune, but actually when you think about it, you couldn't pick a note more out of tune if you tried, right? Yet, okay, it works really well, and usually, you know, we can just kind of get stuck in and start playing with it. I'll just put this track on, and then we'll play at the flat 5, so to demonstrate what I mean. Like, you couldn't get more out of tune, right? But as a passing note... Okay. So as a note, passing it sounds great, doesn't it? But the reason I'm showing you this is because I'm sure that most of us are very familiar with that note, yet it's an out of tune note. So therefore, we're technically playing outside of the key. So why can't we just do that with every other note that's out of tune? That's the basic premises of what I'm saying. And that's the start of... what we're doing with chromatic enclosures and chromaticism. So it's not much different from doing that. You know, it's just we're probably going to give it a bit more structure. That's what we're going to do. Okay. So, like, for something chromatic line, if you know, there's the flat 5. What if, one thing I like to do is I'll just use the major 7 going up to the root. Sounds great, you know. Tell you what though. I might just quickly knock us a track up, right? It's going to be... going to quickly knock something up that's going to be a bit more chilled out, yeah? 2 seconds. Okay, get the drums on. Yeah, right, that'll do. Oh. Gotta push the button. get the bass on. Right, there's my band. Okay, there we go. Anyway, so we know the flat 5 works, but what about, you know, running up from the major 7? So once we're aware of the intervals, we can kind of program our brain with that sound. So if we were to program our brain with that major 7 sound, I'm literally just going from the D flat to the D. So it's literally once you start getting into flow and the melodies start happening in your head, what you're trying to do is put this into your vocabulary, yeah? So just by practicing it and listening to it, because part of the practice of this is in the listening, okay? It's listening and getting used to these sounds, and I think that's as much of part of this as the actual playing itself, you know? So it becomes in your vocabulary as something that you can hear in your head, yeah? Okay. So we've got the major 7 now. So we've got a lot of notes here. We've got, you know, root. We've got the minor third of the pentatonic. We've got the 4th, 5th, 7th. We've got the 9th, which we now know the sound of that, nice and jazzy. We've also got the 6th, which is the Dorian note. B.B. King. So we can program that into our heads. And then we've also got, what else have we got? We've got the major 7. There you go, you see? Let's do it. Okay. So where do we go from here? All right, well, one way we can do things is we can start using approach notes to certain notes, yeah? So, another note that's going to be completely out of tune is going to be this E flat, okay? So this E flat. So the first thing with sort of enclosures is thinking about the approach note to a note that you are going to play that's going to be in tune. So most of the time, these are going to be notes that are going to be outside. Yeah. So one approach note that I think sounds cool, and I've heard Tim Henson play this like loads, is approaching up to the 9th, okay? So the 9th note is E. So you can hear how that sounds just when I'm playing with the minor pentatonic. See, I'm starting to add in those other chromatic notes now. So it's becoming second nature. This is the idea. Just like how playing the flat 5. is, yeah? Okay. Right, everybody following. Cool. Let's have a listen to that approach note. You start getting a very sort of jazzy sound, don't you? Okay. Now what we could do is we can just take that approach idea to everything, right? So and some will be in tune, some will be out. Okay, let's try it. So some examples. Okay, everybody following along. Okay, so I need to pour a coffee before we move on. Morning, hi Jeff, hi everybody. Now, if you're just new to the stream, do subscribe to the channel. I'm just gonna quickly have this coffee. Do subscribe and give it a like. This morning it's a guitar lesson. So if you just come on now, you've walked into a guitar lesson, which is perfectly fine. We're doing Chromatic Enclosures. And I'm building up to it. I'm not Scottish, seriously. Matt, I'm not Scottish, but good to see you this morning. Very good. Where's my thing? Oh, there it is. And there's Jeff. Hi, Jeff. There we go. Nice stuff. Thank you. Okay. Oops. Been listening to Joe Bonamassa this weekend. Very good. I found like this little thing on his one of his lives where he just kind of put together like all of his live solos. So I've been quite interested. Quite interested in what he does. Okay, let's get back to chromatic stuff. Alright, so there's some sort of insight into the different kind of layers of notes that we have. So we had kind of doing the approach note. So we had this approach note going from sort of the minor second to the ninth. Minor second to the major second, I should say. Or flat 9 to 9. You could even go major third. You can even go major third to the fourth. Let's see what that sounds like. See, nice. Oops. I'm in the wrong key. Oh, where am I? There we go. So that works. Had a bit of a brain fart there. Going from G flat to G. Okay. So that's what we can do with like our approach notes, and our blues notes, and all the other notes that are kind of surrounding. Okay. And that's really just all based on sliding round notes. But if we want to get a bit more legato-y, we can start filling in the gaps, right? Okay, so we're not, pretty basic. So let's see what that sounds like. So all I'm doing there is if we take the pentatonic scale and we just take this bit here, we're just using that chromatically. And we can kind of even go down to there. There's 3. Let's see if we can get that to sound good. Okay. Very quick example there. So to start kind of making enclosures, what I do is the first sort of like sequence I ever started using was this. It's just this little kind of thing here. So all I'm doing is root, minor third, pentatonic, pull off, hammer, 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 and pull off. So that's like one sequence. But it gives you something more to hang off rhythmically. But the next thing there is really to expand on all the different areas where you can play this. So everywhere where we've got that minor third interval, it's going to work, yeah. So it's just spotting those different little bits. So there's lots of possibilities there. I suppose an easy one just to get you going is just like the octave repeat. Then you repeat that every octave. Okay. Everybody following? So that minor third interval, just simply finding all the areas across the fretboard where we can play it. That sequence, and then putting that into our playing. So then we can have, there's like becomes lots of different sort of chromatic enclosures. That's our first one. Yeah. And just to add to that, other chromatic sort of sequences you can have is obviously the blatantly obviously ones where we're going up and pulling off down, and that one. Now the cool thing about these is when we're improvising, and you can apply this just to regular scales, a way of thinking is just like in these really small components. So you're not thinking like a big scale run. We're thinking like in smaller. Like little note sequences. Okay. Right, so there's 3 different sequences, up, down, and then that. But there are many, many more to use. So another one would be this. Let's try that one. So what I'm doing there is playing the root, minor third. I'm going that minor second, the major second. So the cool thing about this, what you've got to watch out for, you can only play it in certain places because the note that you're landing on has to be a note that's in key. So we need to know sort of what all the notes are in the Dorian scale, or minor scale or whatever. Because what's actually happening there is you're going root, minor third, and then we've got that minor second to the major second. And we're landing on that second, that 9th note, which is in tune. But when we carry it here, Okay, we're landing from the flat 6 to the 6th, which is the Dorian note. So it only really works in sort of this area. You couldn't play it, like, say, here. Hold on. So we wouldn't be able to play it here because we actually land on a note that's completely out. So unless we shifted that into tune. Okay, so that little sequence. Only works there. Any questions? So it works nicely, nice little phrase that. And then if we combine it with all the other stuff we've got, okay. So there's kind of lots we can do there already. But we have other sort of ways we can use this as well. Bear in mind, we've got this sort of minor interval closure. We've got a major one. And I use this pattern a lot. And it's like a 3, originally it's like a 3-1-3. We've got like F major 9, which is basically a 2-1-2 arpeggio. So I'll just take you through that. So we've got F, A, C there. So, oops. Got our 5th, major 7, 9. Now, if you want to do the way that I actually approach this arpeggio, the way that I do it is I pick, hammer, pick, hybrid, hammer, pick, hybrid, and then it's just picking all the way down. So I find that sort of like really clear way to do things. All right then. But then we can build again in layers. So all I'm doing there is I'm just adding the 9th in there. And I'm adding those notes there. So we're just filling it up now with notes of the scale. And we end up with this arpeggio that goes up to a 13. Okay, and then the next layer on top of that. Hi Brian, how you doing? The next layer on top of that, we're going to add this chromatic in. So that first sort of enclosure works nice. It's almost like a Larry Carlton idea, isn't it? Because he uses like arpeggios. As a framework to improvise on. Let's have a try of this. Anyway. That's what we have there. Right. Before we continue, I'm going to have a bit more of my coffee. Right. Seems very quiet this morning. Probably because it's a little bit like it's hard work doing chromatic enclosures, trying to explain it. I can see why actually just boiling something like this down into like a tent where you couldn't really. You have to just do the live lesson and bear with it. So, any questions so far on what I've been talking about, and has everybody been following it? So I'm a little bit chaotic, although Why's everybody gone to bed? And they're just listening. So anybody who's on here that have just kind of, walked in wondering what's going on, it's a guitar lesson. If if you've been here a while and you haven't subscribed, do subscribe. Give me a like. Okay. Oh. Still here but working, that's all right. Just gonna have a little shred for a bit. Anyway, that feels better. What are your favorite effects? You just distortion, distortion, bit of reverb, bit of delay. That's about it, really. I'm using the Nunchuck today by Polychrome DSP. It's my favourite amp at the minute. And then I think with this sound, I've also got like a stereo widener on it. And then this is the mono version. So the idea is, it sounds really good when you sort of kind of kick in the stereo. Yeah. So those are my favourite effects. Anyway, 3 minutes past. Let's keep going with enclosures. Right. So the next bit. So we'll do a few more. I think we'll do a few more sequences. But if you remember, there's this sort of like wider major sort of interval. I don't know what to call it. Configuration for the enclosures. So again, like what we were doing with this minor shape, what we're doing is we're figuring out all the positions we can play this in. And we can get familiar with the sound. Another cool thing to do is you can do sort of like the fusion version of sort of your modes and your scales. So you can see them sort of vertically across the fretboard as well. So if I took like a regular C major scale, which would give us our D Dorian for the day, so if I take that and then I fill in the gaps, that's another way to look at it. Or if we come here to the 5th fret where the natural minor would be, we would have that. Right. It's an Osiris, yeah. My favourite one. Favourite guitar, this one. Okay, chromatic stuff. So let's do some more sequence kind of things. So one little phrase I really like is this. So I'll take you through that. We've got our first finger on the 10th fret. And we're just hammering on chromatically up to the B. And then we're on to the next string. And I'm hybrid picking, or you could pick the D note. And I'm ending on that C, which is the 7th. And that's a really nice way. I really like doing that as well. Now all I'm doing there is I'm just adding in a flat 5. But I'm doing it this way on. So. It's a nice way to make phrases. So it's a great little phrase just to sort of move about. Yeah, I do a lot of legato. But then I pick as well, so like stuff like that's all picked. Hi Tanmay, how you doing? Yeah. So we've been doing chromatic stuff today. I've just been doing enclosures. Right, okay, moving on. Here's another really good enclosure that I like use all the time. Is this one. So all I'm doing there is we're in, the D Dorian. I'm using that F major, like it's a really good way to get in that F major 7. And what I'm doing there is, so I'm starting on the 5th, starting on the E note, which is our 9th. And I'm hammering on to the 10th fret, pulling off, which is technically that note's chromatic, back to the root, and then I'm sliding into the first root note of that arpeggio saw. So but what you'll find is there's only like certain places you can play it. Because again, we have to slide into a note that's in tune. I'm starting to practice here on the live. So I hope that's helping so far. And then we can have things where... Let's think of another one. So that's like a double chromatic enclosure. So that one, based off that, okay, just jamming now. Question. Points for a little unrelated question for today's objective. Hold on. There we go. Let's have a look. Been working on expanding my fretboard awareness. Got a little outside question for you. How do you personally navigate triads? Especially when improvising with chord changes. Okay. Apologies for a little unrelated question. Right. Okay. Very good question. So it kind of, your question sort of answers it. I mean, like, if you were to just improvise and follow the chord changes, that's what you would do. I mean, personally, I don't like to do that because, especially like if I'm in an improvisation situation, like on Thomas's Live, and I don't really know what the chord progression is fully, then I'm just going to use my ears, aren't I, and work what's best. But I do use an arpeggio framework a lot of the time, which I've covered today. So I'm in D Dorian, and one of the arpeggios I'm using is the F major 9 works really well. And I think the reason it works really well is because it's a good combination of the pentatonic scale and also that 9th note. And that also can lead us on to using sort of just the D minor 9 as well. So D minor 9 and that F major 9 work really well. Because it's almost like a hexatonic pentatonic scale, isn't it, when you listen to it? So it's just really down to then learning lots of different shapes within that. And like sequences. Which I could give you, but there'd be too many. But one thing I like to do is we could have, you know, that shape, for example, or that one. And then what I'll do is I'll do string skipping. Which is based, you know, on the pentatonic scale as well. And then if I want to be a bit more melodic, then I can pull it in with another arpeggio. Right, okay, so Cage, I mean, I've never really bothered with Cage, like, so the way that I think of things, for fretboard visualization is kind of what I explained at the beginning of this video. There's like different layers, and I think the first layer that really works well with me is just thinking of like the framework as pentatonic and then hanging all the notes around that. So pentatonic scale, add the 9th, and I know when I'm playing, if I just stick with that, everything's going to sound good. Then adding in notes that are very characteristic of the mode that you're playing in. So we're in Dorian, so the major 6th is the note that's going to be sort of got the character there. So that's the way that kind of I do it as an improvisation, like hack, I suppose. But then if I was writing a solo and then you've got the chords, then I'm more likely to write sort of round the chord tones for that solo if I'm writing a solo. But if I'm improvising, it'll be pentatonic, 9th characteristic note of the whatever the mode is, and then I have different like views. So you know, this like the using arpeggios is a really good one, and then using them like a scale, you know. Because everything I've applied to this pentatonic, we can apply to the arpeggio, so like the chromatic stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And then you just, I mean, there's a whole kind of lesson on like the way that I do this, because then it's not just straight like minor and major arpeggios. I start going into like mixing chordal harmony stuff with it, you know. So like I have a real sort of hack version of doing that. So instead of we'll start getting that. And we're starting to blur everything into almost into a pentatonic scale now. But if I can hear it in my head that I'm not wanting some of those notes, then I'll turn to that. Like there's a nice little sound. If that gives you some ideas. Love the stereo delay, thank you. That feels a great approach. And that's what it is, it's just one of the many approaches, you know. I have phases with approaches, to be fair. I'll try to incorporate some of it in my playing. I spent years and years learning theory and decades on the stage trying to forget it. Not saying that learning was an issue, but making it unique was the challenge, yeah. Theory is good, but if you are in a moment and you think about it, definitely holds the floor at the stage, right? Right, okay. I've got thoughts on that. In most bands, songs we have maybe 20 seconds and most to play a solo. Definitely got to balance both and perform and right. Theory is good, but if you're in the moment and you think about it, it definitely holds your flow stage hostage without a doubt. So basically the way that I understand it, I need a coffee for this. It's basically when I'm learning theory or I'm learning something new, what's actually happening is I'm using the prefrontal cortex of my head. I'm using the bit of the brain that's at the front. And one thing to bear in mind about that, is that it's the least developed part of our brain. And it's really, really power hungry. We can get, you know, when we're doing like really intensive tasks, we can get very, very tired. But when we're learning something new, this is the area of the brain that we're using to problem solve. But what we're actually trying to do is then put everything into the older brain, which is the unconscious thinking. That's the kind of move. And that's what I'm very, very aware of that when I'm learning things, of what I'm conscious of and moving it from that prefrontal cortex to the side. Now, what's really interesting about this is I'm very much acutely aware of this process when I'm teaching on alive like this. And this is why I've started doing like lots of lessons, because I realize, and I know this isn't just me, but like, you know, some really, really good players out there, that actually when you suddenly ask to play a lick or do something, your playing can fall to bits. And that's because you're trying to pull something out of that older brain, that subconscious that you've been doing without thinking, without being conscious, that you've been doing for years in flow, and then you suddenly having to dissect it for somebody else and then play it, so you're kind of thinking whilst you're playing. And it's a good example of you know, when you're watching somebody demonstrate something, a point of like, it's never going to be sort of like bang on. There's always that discrepancy because you're thinking about it, as opposed to just unconsciously playing it. You know, when I'm consciously trying to play an example of like something on here that's a chromatic enclosure or something like that, I'm thinking about it. So it's kind of very conscious playing. So Tammy, you're right. Fundamentally, what we want to be is we want to be in flow, and a lot of that flow is the transfer of learning this music theory from the prefrontal cortex, practicing it, because the practice is there to get it into the older brain, so it becomes like instinct. And then all of our creative functioning is hopefully coming from the subconscious, like self, what we call self 2, where the limitless possibilities are. And that's where all the good ideas are, because there's like obviously the prefrontal cortex when we're playing and improvising, there's the conscious level of thinking, and then there's the subconscious. And a lot of it is like being able to quickly get into that subconscious. Like a lot of times on lives, I'm like very conscious of like what I'm doing, so I'll play things, but I'll still be in flow. But it's coming from muscle memory, and then something will trigger me, a wah-wah or something like that, and then I'm just in flow, and it's kind of the ideas are just coming out. So it's really interesting, that theory thing, learning the theory and then putting it into the older brain, and then kind of just having fun with it in an unconscious way. In most bands' songs, maybe you have 20 seconds. All right, okay, you've done that one. Yes. Yeah, having like a kind of structured thing is very good. That's it. Got to transfer the knowledge to the hippocampus area of the brain, and I think it only happens with controlled repetition. I do appreciate someone with your ability sharing your talent with us. Oh, thanks, Texas. No, it's good. I'm really enjoying these, so it's good. You know, I think it's good practice for me to like teach. I mean, it's obviously like I can teach in a room, it's completely different, but then teaching sort of in this scenario on a live's a different pressure altogether, isn't it? So it's 31 minutes past. So I hope some of that chromatic stuff ideas helped some of you, and it's been great. I've really enjoyed it, and it's been challenging. But tomorrow, back on tomorrow, and I think I'm a bit out of practice with my live looping. It's been neglected, so I think we're going to do some live looping tomorrow, and maybe we can have a chat about what I'm doing with that at the minute, apart from not being very good at it. All right, Tanmay. All right, so live looping tomorrow, improvising and just making a noise. That's what we're doing. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm off for my park walk now, and see you at the usual time, 6 o'clock UK. Bye.